Bang. Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Joel Wiltshire, and I am your worship associate for today. I'm joined by Beth Syverson, our Director of Music Ministries, and Karen Magoon-Pearson, who is our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth, and welcoming you this morning. Now, if you were here last week, you might remember that we had my junior Unitarian Universalist, Reverend Sian Wiltshire, up to read the announcements. She did such a great job that today we're going to let her do our sermon, so I hope you enjoy it. We'd also like to recognize the many volunteers that have helped put our service together today, and respectfully recognize that our church property rests on Ahachiman and Tongva land. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together, not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. To our Roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phones. For our Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope you will find it here. Later in the service, we will have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you'd like to do so. Right, and lighting our chalice for us today is Rachel Leiden. She has been a member for the church for more than 10 years, and she likes crocheting, and she teaches economics. Love is the spirit of our church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. This we affirm together.
Good morning, everyone. For our opening song, we are going to sing a new words to a song that you probably know if you've been around for a little while. You might recognize the song from Sanctuary, but this is some new words by Unitarian Universalist songwriter Matt Meyer. Make us aware beyond our knowledge, there's compassion beyond our pain, there's a spirit burning brighter, there's a love to guide our way. Let's do that again. There's a truth beyond our knowledge, there's compassion beyond our pain, there's a spirit burning brighter, there's a love to guide our. One more time. There's a truth beyond our knowledge, there's compassion beyond our pain, there's a spirit burning brighter, there's a love to guide our way.
Marvelous truth confront us at every turn and every guise. Iron ball, egg, dark horse, shadow, cloud of breath on the air dwell in our crowded hearts, our steaming bathrooms, kitchens full of things to be done, the ordinary streets. Thrust your smile close that we may know you, terrible joy. I mentioned to Beth that I'm learning to play that on the banjo. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, raise your hand if you know this image. Okay. And who is it? You're wrong. Well, at least she was never known that at first. And so I'm going to tell you how Rosie the Riveter actually came to be. This came to be associated with her. So it all started back in World War II. This is when most of the men in the country went off to war, and that left a lot of manufacturing jobs that were open, right? People needed to build lots of stuff, particularly also to help with the war, right? So weapons and ammunition, that kind of thing. So the government was trying to find ways to encourage women, particularly single women, to enter the workforce and take these jobs. But it wasn't until Rosie the Riveter was invented that all the recruitment really pay off. So the very first Rosie, though, was her name was actually Roz. She was a 19-year-old riveter named Rosalind Palmer, who, as I said, went by the nickname Roz, and she had lived a very privileged life. She came from kind of blue blood on the East Coast, but she decided that rather than going to college, that she would go and work in the factories and sort of do her part for America type of thing, right? So by the way, if you don't know what a riveter is what you do. They're like little bolts that go between plates of metal, okay? So that's how you might build an airplane, for example. So a newspaper reporter heard about her story and wrote it up in an article that appeared in newspapers all across the United States. And that newspaper article then inspired two men to write a song called Rosie the Riveter. And here is a little taste of that song.
All the day long, whether rain or shine, she's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter, keeps a sharp lookout for sabotage. Sitting up there on the fuselage, that little frail can do more than a male can do. Rosie, the riveter. Rosie's got a boyfriend, Charlie. Charlie, he's a Marine. Rosie is protecting Charlie, working overtime on the riveting machine. When they gave her a production knee, she was as proud as a girl could be. There's something true about red, white, and blue about Rosie, the riveter.
You can actually look that up on YouTube if you want to hear the whole song, but lots of fun. So this song actually inspired then Norman Rockwell to do his famous poster of his famous painting that appeared on the Memorial Day edition of the Saturday Evening Post magazine, right? So you can see that she's stepping on the book of Mein Kampf, and she's got all these medals for service award on her. She's looking very muscular. I guess the original model for this was actually quite slim, and Norman Rockwell constantly apologized to her throughout her life about what he kind of did to her. But anyway, so this picture, this one actually here, galvanized women to enter the workforce, as did the song. And soon stories appeared of real-life Rosies all around the country, and the U.S. government took advantage of that popular image and created the most successful government advertising campaign in history. So if you look at in 1940, there were about 11 million women were employed outside the home, and by the end of World War II, there were over almost double that at 20 million were employed outside the home. And there was even a film made in 1944 called Rosie the Riveter. So where then does this picture come in? Well, in 1942, Westinghouse, who was a huge manufacturer of goods and things like that, hired an artist named J. Howard Miller to create a series of posters to motivate employees for the war effort. And one of those posters became the famous "We Can Do It" image. It was never meant to be Rosie the Riveter. The poster was actually part of 42 different posters up there. I love the, have any questions with your, ask your supervisor, a nice white male, there you go. So at any rate, these were actually only used within Westinghouse manufacturing firms for only about 2 weeks at a time. So actually the We Can Do It poster was only in February for 2 weeks up, and then they rotate these posters, right? So it was sort of a form of propaganda, right, to encourage people to work hard and be patriotic in a time of war. And in fact, actually many women, all women, whether they were black, Hispanic, white, Asian descent, all worked side by side. And it's one of the first times when this happened very harmoniously. The women really enjoyed the autonomy of these jobs and the expansion of their minds about what women could do. Unfortunately, after the war, women were told to go back to their homes so that the men could have the jobs, right? So for a long time, this poster was lost to the archives. And in 1982, the We Can Do It poster was reproduced in a magazine by the Washington Post about poster art for patriotism's sake. And feminists at the time saw it as an image embodying female empowerment and adopted this image, and then remembered the time that it came from, and then associated with Rosie the Riveter at that time. So it all kind of beautifully wrapped up in there, and so that Rosie the Riveter kind of stuck, right? And since then, it's become the image of female empowerment that has appeared in all kinds of ways, from boosting the morale of frontline workers up in the upper left, beating breast cancer. I even love they have one for Ukraine. And then the one that totally cracks me up is actually in the 1940s, Clorox decided to get on the campaign, but you'll notice that they put a wedding ring on her. Yeah. And there's actually a convention of Rosies every single year that celebrates women who have helped make the war effort in various ways. And so that's what you see there in the middle. And that is our story. True facts today for our children and adults at our Time for All Ages. So I'd like to invite Karen McGinn-Pearson, our Director of Religious Education, up here. And she will light our children's chalice, and then we will sing them out to the religious education classes.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. Nurture the spark of your precious love. We hold you in our love as you go.
I love it when kids are so excited to go to RE, right? Like, so excited. Yeah, some of them are already actually there. The younger ones tend to stay there instead of coming to the service. But kids are, by the way, if you didn't know, we're always welcome in the service as well. So if you didn't know, this month we've been actually exploring the theme of creativity. And you got a big earful of it with the Ibanez family last week, which was absolutely wonderful. And I think that when we think of something that's creative, right, we think of something like the arts and music and fashion, like there's all different ways of being creative, but I also think of problem solving or inventions. These are all different types of creativity. And so we tend to think of something that's creative as good, right? This is a good, positive thing. But creativity can also have a bit of a dark side to it. A lot of creative endeavors are meant to spark an emotion, right? Like music or paintings. They may invoke sadness or anger or satisfaction or hope. But if creative endeavors are meant to invoke emotions, what if they do so in a way that can be harmful? And this led me to the idea of propaganda. Now, propaganda isn't necessarily bad. If you think about Rosie the Riveter, you could call that propaganda, right? But it actually really helped a lot of women. But it is trying to evoke emotions, right? Like patriotism and dedication and loyalty. We can do it, right? And pride in what you're doing. So this is this is Sean's definition of pulling from many different definitions of propaganda, but this is one of them. That propaganda is a deliberate effort to manipulate people's emotions, perceptions, and beliefs in order to shape public opinion and influence behavior. Okay? So this morning, with that in mind, I'm going to invite you to watch 3 different videos. They're propaganda videos, they're very short. And ask yourself, what emotions are they trying to manipulate or evoke? Okay? And why? And what they're doing, is it harmful? Is it helpful? And also notice how they're doing it. What kind of music do they use? What kind of lighting is going on in these visuals? What images are being used? What symbols? All right, so that we're going to watch is it's one of the latest by the Russian army to recruit soldiers. Interesting, huh? You're a man, be one. You're a real man, be a real man. Wow, okay. So just, shouting it out, or people in the chat if you want to write anything. First of all, what do you think what emotion they're trying to evoke here? Say that again? Stereotypes of men? Yeah. And it's kind of mocking, isn't it? Be a real man. All right. How did they do that? How did they come across that way? What music did they use? Did you notice? Rock, really almost like kind of acid rock, kind of grinding type of thing. And these men, what kind of men are they? They're he-men, idealized, huh? Yep, idealized, almost Aryan. Yeah.
Solitary, and then in the end they're together.
Solitary, yep. All right. So the second one we're going to watch was created by the CIA to recruit spies in Russia.
Это та жизнь, о которой я мечтал. Я себе выбрал. Почему жизни одних людей ценятся больше, чем жизни других? Решает. Быть героем – это значит выстоять. Но выстоять – это всегда будет моя Россия. Я выстою. Моя семья выстоит. Мы будем жить достойно, благодаря моим действиям.
I like how that logo appears out of the shadows. All right, what emotion is being evoked here?
Patriotic subversion,
Patriotic subversion.
as in collaborating with foreigners, but in a patriotic way, somehow.
There you go. Collaborating with foreigners in a patriotic way. Sarah?
I would say fear. I mean, both
Fear.
of them
Mm-hmm.
are fear-driven. You know, if you don't do this,
Yep.
this won't happen.
Yep.
Dissatisfaction?
Dissatisfaction with the way things are.
I thought it was unbelievable that both the fonts of the Russian and also the first line echo the Russian propaganda.
I didn't quite get that. Beth, did you get that?
The fonts on both videos
Yeah, interesting.
As was the first line of dialogue.
The opening lines were almost identical in both videos.
Isn't that interesting? I didn't catch that. That's very cool. Yeah, the lines, the fonts were very interesting, and the opening lines very similar. All right. So our third one was created by the Ukrainian government, most likely for a Western audience, but probably also for themselves as well.
Я батько.
Я молодший брат.
Я водій маршрутки.
Я скоро одружуся. Я фанат Шахтера.
Начальник отдела продаж.
Я прораб.
Я программист.
Я свидетель на свадьбе.
Дядя Юра, таксист.
Я вчитель фізкультури.
Я студент-геолог.
У мене своя фірма.
Я кращий друг зі школи.
Я сусід, який завжди стукає по батареї.
Я єдиний син.
What emotion does that evoke?
Obligation.
Obligation? That's what, what is that? Empathy. Yep, empathy. Yeah, trying to relate people. These are human beings. That it could be any of us. Yeah. Everyday people just like us, right? How about the music? How is the music? Right? Very soft, right? Inspirational. Yep. Yeah.
Trying to call help on Germany.
Trying to get help. You can imagine if this is going to a Western audience, right? We tend to be very compassionate. We want to help, right? It's one of the reasons why that went out there. Well, songs, images, videos, words, for any propaganda purpose are meant to evoke a full range of emotions, whether it's empathy, love, or hope, but they can also prey upon our fears, right? Making them bigger than they are. They can prey upon our insecurities. They can inspire you to greatness, or they can inspire you to violence and hatred. You know, the song When Johnny Comes Marching Home was written in 1863 by an Irish American named Patrick Gilmore for the Union Army in the Civil War, though both sides, it turns out, looks like they both sang it. So let us sing this song, and you can reflect about how music also is used to maybe pump people up.
When Johnny comes marching home again, we'll give him a hearty welcome and hurrah, hurrah. The men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out. We'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. The old church bell will peal and joy, hurrah, hurrah. To welcome home our darling boy, hurrah, hurrah. The village lads and lasses say with noses they will through the wind. We'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. With love and friendship on that day, hurrah, hurrah. Their choicest treasures then display, hurrah, hurrah. And let each one perform some part to fill with joy the warrior's heart. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
So I can't believe I'm going to start the sermon by quoting Hitler, but there you go. He said this about propaganda. He said, "The function of propaganda is not to make an objective study of the truth and then set it before the masses with academic fairness. Its task is to so serve our own right always and unflinchingly. I wanted to begin with that because when people think of propaganda, I mean, at least for me, one of the first images that comes to mind is Nazi Germany, right? And the use of propaganda against, the Jews and anybody who was different, and this idea of the Aryan, right? All of these were tools of propaganda. We tend to think of propaganda as coming from governments, right? And that is, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is really about governmental propaganda versus you could argue that, advertising agencies are propaganda, right, or whatever, but I think that diminishes actually the harm that can come from propaganda when it's used inappropriately. But so it means I'm going to talk about politics, but I'm hoping I'm going to give a balanced view on this, so just warning for y'all. So I was listening to the radio, I was a week or two ago. I was listening to the news. I've been becoming something of a podcast junkie. And I heard former President Donald Trump say, "We will take back America from those who hate it." And this got a huge applause from the audience. And for some reason, I've heard his, exaggerations before and things like that, but that just kind of took me aback. Hate? Really? Does he and those who support him really think that liberals hate America? It kind of threw me, because no liberal I know who opposes the former president hates America at all. Most are very proud to be Americans. I know I am. They just want it to be better, right? What we do is we acknowledge the hurt of the past so that we can learn from it. We don't want to ignore it. And this Make America Great Again that slogan implies that things are not great now, but they were in the past. But was it really? Because things were not so great for a lot of people like women and minorities and LGBTQ people, although he doesn't really explain, how far back the again goes, right? It just sort of meant to evoke nostalgia when things maybe seemed simpler, when they were actually never really simple. They were just hidden. And Trump, in his book, The Art of the Deal, he said, "People want to believe that something is the biggest and the greatest and the most spectacular. I call it truthful hyperbole. It's an innocent form of exaggeration and a very effective form of promotion." I didn't realize that he was actually very clear about how he was speaking. What he's using, obviously, is a form of rhetoric, and rhetoric is a form of propaganda, right? It's meant to give you a picture and paint it rather larger than life, right? To evoke emotions or prey upon them, especially if it's against those that you don't agree with. So that got me thinking, well, if extreme conservatives have this propaganda that all liberals hate America, what about liberals? Do we have propaganda about conservatives? And of course we do, right? Extreme liberals paint a picture of all conservatives as fascist, racist, homophobes, religious fanatics who want to destroy the environment, right? But is that true? That was a rhetorical question. No, I'm just kidding. Now, I know all of you know some conservatives, right? I know some conservatives. And those are not the words that I would use to describe them. I might disagree with some of their politics and everything, but that's not how I would describe them. What's fascinating to me is that each side of the political aisle wants to call the other extremists. Isn't that interesting these days? Yeah. And yet the vast majority of people on both sides are not extremists, but more moderate in both their tone and their beliefs. I don't know if you're aware, but actually only 30% of Republicans actually actively support Trump. The other 70 would prefer to have someone else. They'll fall in line if he gets the nomination, but they would prefer to have someone else, right? And it's the same thing actually with Bernie Sanders. He actually garnered 40% of the primary vote, but he bowed out in favor of one of his opponents. So And he was sort of extreme. I mean, some people called him an extremist, not an extremist, but at least having extreme ideas. But extremism, actually, it turns out is actually very hard to define. I was looking this up, and they said it's really hard to define, particularly legally. As one person put it, it's a bit like pornography. You can't define it, but when you see it, you recognize it. It's like, okay. So I decided for myself to actually define what extremism is. And for me, it's the outcome of propaganda that promotes hate and violence. Now, someone might hold an extreme view. For example, maybe that all women belong in the kitchen, or all companies are capitalist evil structures. But until that extreme view turns into violence or vitriol, it's not extremism to me. It's just an extreme view. Do you see the difference? Does that make sense? Okay. So what's been so troubling in the last few decades is that we've seen a huge rise in extremism, as you can see here, by extremist groups. While right-wing extremism has exploded, it's up since up to in 2020. That's not even counting January 6th. It was up 377% in the right-wing extremism, but leftist extremism is also up over the last few decades. So this guy, you're asking like, well, why do many people, why are we going to this extremism, this extreme understanding that leads to violence and hatred? Why do we vilify one another, or at least the other side? Why do we paint these hyperbolic pictures of those that we disagree with? Well, I could find no one better to actually explain it than John Cleese, who does so in a rather humorous way. So forgive the video image because this was broadcast on April Fool's Day, actually in 1987. It was about originally the larger video was about a political issue going on in Britain, but this one is, I think, hilarious.
Seriously though, we've heard a lot about extremism recently, a nastier, harsher atmosphere everywhere, more abuse and bother boy behavior, less friendliness and tolerance and respect for opponents. All right, but what we never hear about extremism is its advantages. Well, the biggest advantage of extremism is that it makes you feel good because it provides you with enemies. Let me explain. The great thing about having enemies is that you can pretend that all the badness in the whole world is in your enemies and all the goodness in the whole world is in you. Attractive, isn't it? So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because these enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be good-natured and courteous and rational all the time. So, if you want to feel good, become an extremist. Okay, now you have a choice. If you join the hard left, they'll give you their list of authorized enemies. Almost all kinds of authority, especially the police, the city, Americans, judges, multinational corporations, public schools, furriers, newspaper owners, fox hunters, generals, class traitors, and, of course, moderates. Or, if you'd rather be an extremist on the hard right, no problem, fine, you still get a lovely list of enemies, only they're different ones. Noisy minority groups, unions, Russia, weirdos, demonstrators, welfare sponges, meddlesome clergy, peaceniks, the BBC, strikers, social workers, communists, and, of course, moderates. And upstart actors. Now, once you're armed with one of these super lists of enemies, you can be as nasty as you like and yet feel your behaviors morally justified. So you can strut around abusing people and telling them you could eat them for breakfast and still think of yourself as a champion of the truth, a fighter for the greater good, and not the rather sad paranoid schizoid that you really are.
I've been wanting to use that video for so long. I just love it. So, it does beg the question, are Unitarian Universalists, are we extremists? So our culture tends toward being liberal, particularly around social ideas, and we're cutting edge when it comes to religion, and we do embrace a lot of those cutting edge forms of social issues, LGBTQIA, immigration, gun safety. So some of us might call us leftist extremists. which has led to some violence actually against Unitarian Universalist churches. Some of you may remember that there was a shooting in Knoxville, deliberately against liberals. And more recently, there's actually been a lot of vandalism. But our values, however, are not extremist at all. We Unitarian Universalists, we embrace differences, right? Or at least we're supposed to. Right? We accept one another and encourage spiritual growth in our congregations. That's one of our principles, right? The inherent dignity and worth of all people. We're sort of this odd mixture of radical views, extreme views, but without the violence, right? I don't think you can be violent and hate-filled and be a Unitarian Universalist. And I rarely say there isn't something that you can be as a Unitarian Universalist, but I truly don't think you can be violent or hate-filled to be a UU. Now, you can be angry, you can be upset, you can protest, you can vote, but killing, destruction, violence is not who we are. Like Cleese tells us, it feels good to have an enemy, to feel righteous and right in all our cause. It'd be so easy to dehumanize people, right? To believe that propaganda. And that's what propaganda and rhetoric do, right? They manipulate our feelings and thus our culture and our perceptions of one another. And that gets highlighted, of course, with social media and everything that's going out there. When you get a tweet that's only 164 characters long, you know, you can easily just make whatever thing you want to say, just make it up. But I think our fourth principle is absolutely vital in fighting against extremism. And our fourth principle is the idea that we believe in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is absolutely vital to fight extremism against the dehumanization of people. It requires us, well, okay, maybe it asks us, it asks us to stop and really think about what is happening and how we might be manipulated by propaganda on all sides. Now, some people, as I mentioned, will argue that propaganda is everywhere, that we all have agendas, right? Maybe I'm doing propaganda right now. Companies that try to manipulate us. Remember those AT&T commercials that just made you cry? Oh, I remember those, yeah. But I think that when you do that kind of broad definition of propaganda, it trivializes the true impact of a lot of political propaganda. I think that the propaganda that we need to watch out for is one that really vilifies, it creates violence and hate in the world. If it mocks, I don't think that hyperbole, with all respect, some respect, I don't think that hyperbole can be innocent when it creates an atmosphere of hate or the dehumanization of others. Hate ultimately encourages violence. And this is one of the problems that we have right now. If what you say encourages violence, who's responsible? The person who encouraged, the person who did it? That's one of the things our country is really struggling with right now, because we believe in freedom of speech. But at what point? How do you do that? When propaganda appeals to our baser instincts, that is hate and violence, our insecurities, this is what leads actually to extremism. So the videos that we saw earlier, right, the Russian recruitment, right, is that machoism that it's appealing to, it's mocking, it's appealing to those insecurities of men. You'll be buff and handsome just like those men on there, right? So what are they not saying? That, you know, we don't really have any uniforms or ammunition for you, right? You'll probably die, as hundreds, it looks like probably about 200,000 Russians have died so far. What about that CIA video, right? That desire to protect your family, the desire to speak out against what your country is doing, but you know that you can't, right? But one of the things that it doesn't actually say is, oh, by the way, you're putting your family at risk by doing this, right? And that Ukrainian video, right? The soft music, the humanity of it, painting people as humans. It humanizes the war. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that this was used to help people understand that Ukrainians needed help, right? That it could be any one of us. To me, there's more truth in that one. So I kind of thought, well, how can we, if we're watching things or looking at things online, whether they're videos or something on Facebook and a meme pops up, right? And how do we combat this? How do we do this free and responsible search for truth and meaning, right? So I came up with some ideas for y'all. So exercising our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. 1, ask questions. It's pretty simple, right? Things like, you could say, how does that making me feel? Do I feel good because I now got an enemy? Or do I feel good because now my humanity is being touched? In other words, is it appealing to your better or baser self? Right? And what's not being said? And ultimately, is it true? These are good questions to ask at all. And given that we UUs tend to be a skeptical sort, we love our questions. So ask the questions, right? The other thing that I would suggest to do is go to the original sources, right? Talk to people who were there or what is being spoken about, like Rosie the Riveter, that whole story that I talked about. I mean, I did do a lot of research to figure all of that out. And there were actually some conflicting ideas that were out there. And you could go back and go, well, Sean, actually, that may not be the first Rosie. And that's okay. You're getting my take on it. But ask yourself, yeah, read the original people. If you hear someone, I heard something about, go to that person. You know, read an article or podcast or whatever and see what they actually say. And then, of course, the other is to humanize people. This is really interesting. There was a study out of I think it was the University of Pennsylvania, where they were trying to get liberals and conservatives to understand one another. And the only thing they asked them to do is just to empathize. Can you understand what it might be like to feel that way, right? And this was incredibly hard for people to do. Liberals had a little bit better of a time at it, but not that much. Trying to understand the other point of view, because one of the reasons I think that people don't want to understand the other point of view is because they think that somehow this means that you'll agree with them. And it doesn't. Understanding another point of view can actually help you to actually combat what they're saying as well. But it does not mean that you're agreeing at all, right? You're just understanding. I mean, I'm sure that all of you know people that you disagree with, maybe politically, maybe they're in your family, right? And of course you love them, right? Even though they're that way. They might be frustrated and you might be like, we're not going to talk politics now. But you still love them because that's not all of what they're about. You know, and here's the thing. I feel so lucky that we're Unitarian Universalists. I remember every day when I was in seminary, I would be so thankful, my ecumenical seminary, that I was a Unitarian Universalist. And it really hit me again as I was doing this service. So lucky to be part of a religion that tells me I can hold the tension between being radical and loving, right? Not extreme and hateful, radical and loving. And if this religion was adopted by everyone, can you imagine if this religion was adopted by everyone, how few wars there would actually be? There'd be a lot of debate, right? But almost no wars, right? I hope, anyway, there'd be no wars. It's so easy to buy into propaganda, right? It's powerful, the images, the songs, the music, right? This is what we can do. It's so seductive to want to be right, to make others evil, to make them the enemy, to be the good guy. Just don't buy into it. Use all your reason, use all your compassion and all your conscious mind, your better self, to combat the hate and vitriol that we sling around so easily these days. So let us sing, Wake Now, My Senses.
Please rise in body or spirit.
Receiving as love shows us.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing one half of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are supporting Stand Up for Kids. To support our church and Stand Up for Kids, you can mail a check, go through our website, use an app called Venco Mobile, or in the room, we are reinstituting Passing the Plates, which is another option for you. And our Zoom usher will put a link to the plate share in chat for our Zoomers. All the information is on our website should you need it. Thank you for your continued generosity.
Let us sing our offertory response together. This song puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share. We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
By the way, I just want to point out, I do this periodically, that if you see me tapping on my phone, I'm actually talking to a Zoomer, usually saying hello or something like that. So I'm not checking Facebook or anything like that. I just want to point that out. So there were some responses in here from the Zoomers, and I want to acknowledge our wonderful Zoomers who are up there. Usually about anywhere from 30 to 40 people are online. So now is that time when we honor the important events in our lives and people as well, and you're invited one and all, whether you're a member or you're a friend or visitor, whatever your status. you're a roomer or a zoomer, you can participate in our weekly ritual called Joys and Sorrows. And I'd like to invite Marilyn Giss up here, who's one of our pastoral care team members and our congregational nurse as well. She's here to assist us. And I just want to point out that Marilyn hasn't been able to do this because she was battling cancer and she's doing really well. So this is her first Sunday back. So yay. So perhaps you came here today holding something in your heart that has touched you at your core. And if you would like to honor a profound joy or sorrow, you are welcome to come forward and to light a candle. Zoomers, of course, you can do so as well as at home. But if you would like to have one lit for you, you can write in the chat what your joy or sorrow is, and Marilyn will then light one for you when I read them out loud. And of course, if you're here in the room, if you'd like to fill out one of these sheets of paper, the ushers have them if you didn't get one when you first came in, and write out your joy and sorrow, and then I will share it with the congregation. You don't have to, you can simply come forward and light a candle, but if you'd like to share it with the congregation, that's how you do it. So please come forward and light your candles, and once the rumors are done, we will read them out loud. And as music is played, I invite you to silently offer a healing or celebration as you feel called and according to your own beliefs. So let's see here. On our Zoomers, Sarah J., our administrator, she would like a candle of joy lit because it's the last day of school was Friday. She says, last day of homework ever, all done. So she's been working toward a certificate. So it sounds like that's all done. That's awesome. Right on. And Matthew P., he would like a candle of concern. He says, I've recently been informed that as of June 30th, I'm losing my medical benefits. So trying to find a different job that offers Kaiser insurance. He says, I'm working toward another surgery that will be impossible to get without the right medical insurance. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. And can you also lit a candle for me? My older sister, she's 11 years older than me, and she fell yesterday and broke 5 ribs. Yeah, she didn't just bruise them, she broke them. She's in the hospital at Marin General, but they're actually hoping she'll go home today or tomorrow, so fingers crossed. So let's see here. Here in the room, Francie C. She lit a candle of joy for her granddaughter Sierra Mayhew, who turns 26 on June 1st. She lives in New York City, and through serendipity, she flew to LA on a work assignment, and we got to have lunch to celebrate in person for upcoming B-Day. Truly a joyful day. Congratulations, right on. It's nice when family come to town. Wonderful. And Paula P., she lit a candle of joy for sharing a movie with a theater full of special needs children, adults, and their families. Right on. And B lit a candle of joy. Where's B? She's here. All right. There she is right there. She says, we hosted our hot pot auction last night, and it felt so warm and joyful to get to know new friends from the community and to see the love shared among us. Awesome. Right on. And Elizabeth K., I love this one. Elizabeth K. Lit a candle of joy because she said it was a complete joy to sit behind the gentleman with the resounding bass voice in the back row. Thank you for sharing your beautiful voice with us today. Now, I believe if you didn't know that this is probably Steve Miller, who is also the director of the OC Men's Chorus. Huh? Steve Malloy. Sorry, there you go. So, director of the OC Men's Chorus. So there you go. Sorry, Steve. I didn't mean thought people might want to know that fact too. So, right on. Let's see here. And Pat L. Lit a candle of joy. She said the double bonanza she experienced here at OCUC last weekend. She said it was her first auction and Sunday's powerfully tender service followed by potluck fellowship. And what a blessing to have our Afghani family join us. Thank you, everyone. For those of you who are new, we've been sponsoring not only the Ukrainians next door as refugees, but also a family from Afghanistan, and the congregation got to meet the family last week. So on a little bit more of a somber note, Dave Carlson, one of our wonderful veterans in this congregation, in honor of Memorial Day, he lit a candle for those helicopter pilots that he helped train who were killed in Vietnam. And Beth O., she lit a candle of sorrow. She said an 18-year-old cancer patient who died this morning. She says her RN daughter helped care for her. I'm sorry. Now we have a tradition in this congregation that when you hit 90 every year 90 and above, you get happy birthday sung to you, okay? And we have a 93-year-old here today. This is Ralph Haller. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ralph. Happy birthday to you. And if you hit 100, boy, we'll have a real blowout. Okay. All right, let us hold and love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect with one another. Let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. Please join Marilyn in a spirit of prayer or meditation.
This is called The Young Dead Soldiers by Archibald MacLeish. The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, "We are young. We have died. Remember us." They say, "We have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done." They say, "We have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave." They say, "Our deaths are not ours. They are yours. They will mean what you make them." They say, "Whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing we cannot say, it is you who must say this." They say, "We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were young," they say. "We have died. Remember us." Amen. Thank you.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say, "We extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again." Thank you for joining us this morning. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently. And yet, when we gather together, whether we are in the room or on Zoom, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who has not yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved community. We encourage you to either write in the chat if you're a Zoomer, or if you're a roomer, to stand for a brief moment and tell us your name and where you are from. We'll have a microphone if you're in the room. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Beth Otterbein.
And I'm Jim Gray.
He's my domestic partner. I'm a registered nurse at Hoag Hospital. I'm here because Marilyn Giss is a faith community nurse as well, and I truly enjoyed this experience. Love it here.
Very much so. It's
welcome.
beautiful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Malloy. I am the artistic director of Men Alive, the Orange County Gay Men's Chorus, and I am here thanks to Mike this morning.
Welcome. And she doesn't like to type much, but I know that my grandmother is joining us on Zoom today, so hello, Grandma. If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for our youth and children, please contact us at hello@ocuc.org, and we'll help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for a weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out.
All right, a number of different announcements. You can see all sorts of things coming up here. So we've got our big annual meeting on June 11th. All members there can vote in that, but everybody is welcome if you'd like to be there and see how we do our annual meetings, and we give out awards, and we pass the budget and all sorts of fun stuff. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Let's see here. And also, if you would like to notice someone and give someone a little bit of a gold star and a recognition for work that they do, nominations are due today to Judith. If you want to send them to me, I can pass them on to her as well. June 4th. I swear I have been getting today and June 4th mixed up constantly. I don't know. I think it has something to do with the fact that I'm going on sabbatical. Yeah. So I'm going to be going on sabbatical from June 12th, so the day after the 11th, after the annual meeting, until about September 5th. And I just want to let you know that I and the worship committee have planned some absolutely wonderful worship for you. Some of our favorites are going to be there. We're going to start off with Michael Esselin. We've got Arvid Strabe is coming. Beth is going to be preaching as well. So you're going to hear that. You know, I usually like to have, if I go on sabbatical, I like for the summer to have a regular preacher. And so this time, Lee Marie is kind of officially retired, so she will not be joining us this summer. But Casey Pandel, another favorite of this congregation, will be here 5 times this summer. So we've got some new people as well. Reverend Kakanza and Reverend Everett will also be here that day. But next Sunday, the 4th, not the 11th, okay, the 4th, is Flower Communion Sunday. Okay, so this is, if you didn't know, if some of you are new to Unitarian Universalism, this is an annual tradition that we do where we bring flowers that we share. And it was a ritual that was created actually in Czechoslovakia by a Unitarian minister to celebrate the diversity of all of us. And if you didn't know, it's the 100th anniversary of the Flower Communion. So our wonderful choir have pulling out all the stops, and we're doing a cantata that day. So there's all this wonderful music that's going to be going on and everything as we tell the story and everything. So, and Zoomers, what you can do for your flowers, either have some flowers next to you, or you can put in your background. What we did in the past is put flowers in your background on Zoom. And if you don't know how to do that, Google it. It's quite easy. So come on out for that, bring your flowers, and we'll be creating a beautiful bouquet, which is what we all are. All right, so my final words for today: wake now your reason, wake now your compassion, wake now your conscience, just come awake. Don't be woke, but come awake. No, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. All right, let's sing our benediction.
Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroy. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroy. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy.
This service is over. Let our service continue. Amen.